I think this might well be my most favorite VCO yet, the Trapezoid Thru Quadrature VCO from Doepfer, and I would say in short it's the A-110-6. What I think is so nice about this VCO is that it has 10 different waveform outputs. Let's go over a sound I made, a sequence I made, and let's just hear what this A-110-6, the Trapezoid Thru Quadrature VCO from Doepfer, how it actually sounds and what nice sounds and soundscapes you can make. Here we go. Really nice sounds you can make, and I got another patch ready. Let's listen. It's kind of a droning sound. I think the Trapezoid Thru Quadrature VCO is ideal for soundscaping, for droning. It has lots of waveforms, and if you modulate it, it goes beyond your imagination. Not only that, but it has the bit softer waveforms like the trapezoid. And trapezoid, it's a waveform that's not that regular in eurorack. What you can do with it, I'm sending it to the wave multiplier, the A-110-6, the wave multiplier 1 from Doepfer, and I'm modulating that with the complex envelope generator, the 143-1. And what this accomplishes is that I'm wave multiplying a pretty simple, soft waveform with a little bit more information than a normal triangular wave or normal sine wave. That's creating this really complex movement and wave multiplying sound. And I'm also exponentially FM modulating the Trapezoid Thru Quadrature VCO, that's mouthful, the A-110-6 from Doepfer. I'm also cross-modulating that with the standard VCO, on which I already did an episode. Already did an episode on the wave multiplier 2, the A-137-1. Please have a look, I'll put the links in the description. Also my complex envelope generator, the A-143-1, one of my favorite modules. Also did a video on that, so please check that out. Of all the patches I'm doing now, I will make patch notes and put them on my Patreon page. So if you really want to support me, please head over there and join my Patreon page. You can download all these patch notes. Let's maybe go over the module and what the knobs do, what the inputs and the outputs do, tell a little bit about the module, and then afterwards some more patches, some more really cool, nice sounds. So please bear with me. Let's first look at all the waveform outputs. There are 10 of those, and it's pretty extensive. Maybe let's first talk about what the Trapezoid Thru VCO from Doepfer doesn't do. It doesn't sync, so you don't have an input to sync the module. It doesn't do pulse width modulation, but I think there are plenty of oscillators that do both those things. That's a particular kind of sound you can accomplish, but with this one you can accomplish so much sounds that I think the module itself is amazing. Let's go over the waveform outputs. At the top we've got the triangular waveform, the 90-degree shifted triangular waveform. Then we got the sine and the cosine, which is a 90-degree shifted sine wave. We got the rectangular and the rectangular shifted waveform. We got the saw and the 90 degrees shifted saw. The trapezoid and the 90 degrees shifted trapezoid output. What this means, it's a quadrature VCO. So we already got 2 shifts, but because this is a true zero, you can, with the frequency control, you can go into the negative, and those are negative frequencies, which a normal oscillator can't do. You can turn a knob and go higher and higher and higher in pitch, and then go lower and lower and lower in pitch if you turn the knob counterclockwise, until you reach the end, and that's it. Then it's the slowest cycle that oscillator will do. This oscillator, because it's a true zero oscillator, you can go all the way up till you reach the highest pitch, then you go down until you reach point 0, and if you go beyond point 0, then the frequencies, it goes from high to low, then it stops, and then it goes from low to high again. So that's the concept of through zero. If you modulate it, it has that particular and pretty, yeah, nice sound to it. Because of this negative frequency, you can also get the 180 phase shift because it goes into the negative. You got the 0, you got the 90 degrees. If you go through 0 into the negative, the 0 degrees becomes the 180 degrees, and the 90 degrees phase shift becomes the 240 degrees phase shift. You got 4 phase shifts. Therefore the name Quadrature. Let's move on to the inputs. Now let's go over all the inputs. There are not too many, but still, you got the 1 volt per octave input, and it's also connected to the bus, which you can disconnect with a jumper on the back. It receives control voltages over the bus. I'm using the bus axis to send pitch CV coming from the matriarch to all my oscillators that receive CV over bus. Did a video on the bus axis. You can look it up if you want to know more about how that works. So it receives control voltages over the bus, and what it also does is it doesn't disconnect the bus when you plug a cable into the input. It doesn't disconnect, it adds those control voltages to the one that it receives over the bus. So for instance, if you have like a precision adder that is connected to the bus, also did a video on that, please look it up. It's an awesome module and you need it in your system, even if you don't think you need one. It's really that good. For instance, you can use a precision adder in the switches to switch between different octaves via the bus board, and then add a sequence just in the jack here, and you combine those two. You can even add sequences also to the precision adder. So there's many possibilities to modulate your pitch, to sequence your pitch and to shift your pitch. So lots of possibilities if you use that precision adder. Then you got the XFM input, and what this is, it's an exponential frequency modulation. So exponentially means in the beginning it goes quite subtle, then it goes steeper and steeper and steeper until you really got a big difference when you reach the top. Then the next input is the linear frequency modulation, which means it's linear, so that's a more gentle way of frequency modulation. And yeah, that's about it. That are all the inputs. Then we got a switch that switches the module between VCO mode and LFO mode. Because all these nice waveforms, it's also a really nice LFO. Let's take a look at all the knobs. You got the X tune, which is, you can tune the oscillator with this knob. Then you got the XFM attenuator, as I would call it. The signal that goes in here can be totally off or totally 100% affecting the VCO. Then you got the L frequency knob. It goes into the negative. Then when you're in the middle, the oscillator is almost not moving, a little bit to the left or to the right. It depends on where in the middle you are. It's really sensitive. And then if you go into the positive, the oscillator is into the positive frequency range. So you can tune it with this knob, but you can also adjust it with this tune knob. And then you got the attenuator, the LFM knob, the attenuator for the incoming signal that you put for the linear frequency modulation. Here we got an LED, and that is red when it's in negative, and if you turn it towards the middle it goes dim. When you turn it all the way up it becomes a yellow LED. Here you got also an LED, and that's for the frequency, so the slower you go, the slower the LED will blink. And let's see, so it's going really slowly. In LFO mode it's even slower, of course, then it's not audible, but it's a great source for modulation. Let's have a look at a few other sounds. This is the first one, it's the triangular. Like you can see on the oscilloscope, I've got no filtering going on, I've got no delay going on, so it's a pretty soft signal. Not so loud in volume because it doesn't contain so many overtones. Let's go over the phase shifted triangular waveform, and that will sound exactly the same. So there's no difference. You can't hear the difference, but you can do stuff with this shifted signal that I will explain later. Let's go over the sine wave. Even more soft. We look on the oscilloscope, then we see that it's not totally round at the top, but it's pretty round, it's pretty soft. It sounds like a sine wave, a little bit brighter maybe than a real smooth sine wave, but still it is nice. If you want a really smooth sounding, really soft sounding sine wave oscillator that tracks really well, I would suggest the A-110-6. That's also a Thru 01, and you can make brilliant sounds with it. Have a video on that, we'll link it in the description. This one, it's pretty okay sine wave. Then let's go over to the rectangular, the square wave. You hear that, you get more overtones, it's brighter, it sounds nice. Then the saw wave. It's nice and buzzy like a saw should sound. And then let's go over to a more unique waveform, the trapezoid, and that sounds like this. Has a little bit that squarish wave in it, but smoother, it's very precise sounding. I think that's a really nice sound. It's pretty, it's beautiful. Nice sound. What we can do with the inverter interrupting mixer from Doepfer, also did a video on that one. I really like it in combination with a VCO. With this Thru Zero Quadrature VCO, I think it is brilliant. You can, of course, use an inversed signal. You can really shape you can make a waveform that is off the charts. brittle sounds, full sounds. Yeah, you can make a really unique sound because you can shape the waveform how you want it, the way you want it. You can subtract, add, all with that A-138G, the interrupting inverting mixer. It adds so many potential to an oscillator. The True Zero Quadrature VCO might not have sync or pulse width modulation if you take all the in and outputs of that oscillator and you can make really nice waveforms. Then you will start to hear what it's all about. So there are so many possibilities because you can combine them all, make them subtract, add, do specific things. Such an inverting, interrupting mixer can add to any VCO, but I think this Trapezoid Thru Zero VCO really shines when you're using it with a mixer like that. In the video where I had 5 really nice ways to turbocharge your VCO, I used the voltage control switch, and because this has so many outputs, different waveforms, I think the dual VCS from Doepfer is a nice companion. There is a module from Doepfer that's called the pulse width modulation generator. Pretty cheap module. I hope I can do a review on that somewhere in the future. Can derive a pulse signal with pulse width modulation and control from triangular wave or a sine wave or a saw wave form. And I think with the pulse width modulation and the dual VCS combined at an inverting mixer, you get a really complete package with an oscillator that can do so much. It's not the cheapest oscillator out there, but you got that trapezoid waveform that, in my opinion, is really valuable and nice sounding, because I'm really excited. I got yet another patch, and this is a way to make it sound really beautiful and have a sense of pulse width modulation. The patch goes as follows. Using the dual VCS from Doepfer, sending 2 waveforms to the dual VCS, and one waveform is a saw and the other one is the phase shifted trapezoid. Going to the dual VCS, I'm syncing the standard VCO to the Trapezoid Thru Zero Quadrature VCO from Doepfer, and I'm using the pulse width modulation modulated by an LFO to change the switching of the dual voltage controlled switch. Please watch the episode 5 ways to turbocharge your VCO if you want to know how I'm doing this. More on that in that video. I will link it in the description. That's modulating the sound, and let's have a listen at how that sounds. Let's try frequency modulating the A-110-6. So let's try what we can come up with. Also really nice. So what you're hearing right now is only the switching at audio rates between the two waveforms from the Thru Zero Quadrature VCO, only using the sound of the Trapezoid Thru Zero Quadrature VCO. I'm using the other modules to modulate it and to switch the waveforms. Let's drone it. And let's try switch combining other waveforms. So if you see on the oscilloscope, it's really nice modulation. Now I'm into the higher modulation. Let's try. Out of this world. I like that stuff. Really weird. Might be useful, kind of a horror movie or something like that. Tweaked just the right amount. It's amazing. Bleeps stuff you can come up with this module. It's really nice, really good take on bleepy stuff. Let's sequence it. decent stuff. Maybe let's quickly try it again with not a drone sound. Really snappy. I think that, yeah, sounds amazing. If you use it as an LFO, you can have kind of a synced modulation of many outputs. Maybe let's try modulating the standard VCO and maybe another VCO with the Quadrature Thru 0 VCO, and yeah, let's see how that works. Really deep and full of character. It's moving. And there's quite a lot happening. Got the standard VCO. I'm using the pulse output to go into channel 1. Channel 2 is the trapezoid output from the A-110-6, the Thru 0 Quadrature VCO. The third input on the mixer is the 90 degrees shifted saw waveform from that A-110-6, and it's all in the positive mode on the interrupting inverting mixer, all about the same volume. I'm also exponentially frequency modulating that VCO with the wave output from the first matriarch VCO, which is a triangular wave and it's pretty high up frequency wise. What I'm also doing is I'm taking the 90 degrees phase shifted trapezoid output to the pulse width modulation, and the CV is also coming from both the matriarch and the sine output from the A-110-6. So a lot is going on. I will make patch notes of this patch. And yeah, let's hear again how this actually sounds. Maybe I'm just going to play a sequence. And let's play around. Shape it with an interrupting inverting mixer by switching those waveforms to the positive or the negative. They interact in another way, and I think that's really nice when two oscillators are working together. They're both interacting and one is modulating the other one in quite a complex way. When you switch those waveforms, then you got a subtle difference, but I think it's pretty noticeable. Bit of filtering from the matriarch. frequency modulation, and maybe the sound is going bonkers, but let's try. I think this is cool. It's sounding a little bit evil. And just notice, because this is the true zero oscillator, how nicely it stays in tune and it doesn't deviate too much. It's just, I think, perfect. Even going more bonkers. Pretty nice. Now it's really totally bonkers, and it gets a little bit not that pretty anymore, but it's more bellish now, getting more bellish. Trying another waveform from the matriarch to frequency modulate. I think this is also nice. Also nice. Try linear modulation. Linear one. Not that pretty in this instance, but it has its purpose in other ways. I think this is really nice. Let's just for fun try to bring in those other oscillators from the matriarch. If it's in tune, fingers crossed. It's in tune. Amazing, but it's still in tune. Because with all that modulation, things could go out of tune. Let's try the exponential again. I'm now frequency modulating the oscillators, the extra oscillators from the matriarch with an LFO at audio rate. So totally not advised if you want pretty sounds. Interesting, as I would say. It's the sound of chaos, it's the sound of destruction. It's sounding so evil. Let's disconnect the standard VCO and let's see what actually remains. Only a little bit on top of all the stuff is added by the VCO. Let's turn down the voices of the matriarch and you're left with this. Let's add again the VCO, the standard VCO, to the Quadrature Thru VCO. Then it adds a lot. So the frequency modulation of the matriarch is the thing that is really going bonkers. The matriarch is not sounding that interesting, to be honest. It sounds interesting, but I think this Thru Quadrature VCO, the A-110-6, is really nice in combination with the standard VCO in this configuration. Patch notes on my Patreon, please go there and yeah, have a look. An amazing module. Please, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and yeah, join my Patreon if you want to support me even more. I would like to thank you for watching the A-110-6, the Trapezoid Thru Quadrature VCO. It's a mouthful, it's from Doepfer, but it's a really, really good, amazing, I would say, oscillator. I think this might become one of my favorite oscillators. I have so many in my system from different brands, from Make Noise, from Mutual Instruments, from all those other brands. I've got plenty of them, the tip-top ones, the Doepfer ones, EO-Wave, you call it, you name it. There's probably some VCO from that brand in my system. All really nice VCOs, but I think this might become my favorite VCO. Of course, it's not my only VCO, but it really merges well with a pretty standard VCO. If you combine those two, you can create immense sounds. If you add the inverting interrupting mixer, you can create amazing sounds. If you add the wave multiplier, you can expand upon the VCO in a way that is really interesting, because it got many outputs and many of those outputs are a little bit softer than the regular ones. You also got the saw and the pulse out, but you got the trapezoid, the sine wave and the triangular wave form, and those combine really well with a wave multiplier. So there you go, highly recommended, and I hope to see you next episode. Bye bye.